For the next 25 years, Henry I carried on the cork business. He had his ups and downs, as all businesses do, but more or less it did fairly well. He still worked the farm with his father, but soon the business could carry by itself. He got married and had a son, and his son, Henry II, eventually took over the business. At the same time as that was all happening during those years, a wine industry began to sprout up in Moravia, and those wineries were already starting to use cork stoppers. So this opened up a whole new area of business for Jelinek Cork, and it was the wine cork, the staple of the company for the next 50 years or so. So Henry II took over the business, but Henry II really enjoyed his social life. He liked going out with his buddies and with his girlfriends. And the business was doing sufficiently well that he could do that. But over time, it began to decline. It especially declined because there was a disease that had struck the wineries in Moravia, and many of the vineyards began to die off, so there was less and less demand for cork. So the combination of the two things, less demand for wine corks in those days, plus Henry II's thirst for enjoying life, had the company declining rapidly. At the same time, Henry II got married and had three children, 2 boys and a girl. The eldest of the children was Henry III, my father actually. And Henry II had put great demands on his son, the eldest son especially, to do the farming and also work within the cork business to try to keep it going, while his father was out there spending money on himself and his friends, socializing and traveling all over and not caring much about the business, but demanding a return. Obviously, this created a strife between father and son, and this went on for quite a while. My father eventually couldn't take it anymore, and he split away from his father at the time, but his father said, okay, fine, you leave, you take the business, which there was very little of. And this was also in the beginning of the 1900s. My father was born in 1900, and things were really tough. But he wanted to get into a good social position, my father did. So he signed up as a military officer, and he lied about his age. He was only 16 years old, but he said he was 18 years old when he became an officer and fought in World War I. After the war, the prestige of being an officer, that was his ulterior motive. The prestige of being an officer allowed him to get into places where he otherwise wouldn't have been able to get. People would allow him to come and speak to them about business and cork, and he began to grow the business all over again. By that time, the wine industry got reborn. The vines were growing well again, so things prospered after World War I quite a bit. He was still living in this little village, though, of Bosanohe, this farm village, and he decided, and certainly correctly, to move to the big city of Prague. So he moved the company to outside of Prague. He was married as well at that time. He and my mother had 5 children. And I, being the youngest, which is unusual, was named Henry.